Hello, MotoAmerica fans. Welcome to this latest edition of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. I am Bice, and I'm joined by our communications manager, Paul Carruthers. And we are basically 1 week away from Barber Motorsports Park, which is, I think, a track that's that our guest today is a fan of. And we've got Jaret Nassaney on, and my gosh, it's high time that we got this guy on. You're an OG, Jaret. You've been with us since the beginning. So as we celebrate our 10th season of Moto America, you celebrate your 10th season. Well, did you race before Moto America?
Yes, I raced some club level stuff here in CMRA in our local organization, and then built up enough points. And then when MotoAmerica started, I started in the RC 390 Cup.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you did Junior Cup for a couple of years, and then you made the switch to Supersport, and you've been in with that class for a while. Um, Honestly, I'm going to get started, Paul, if it's okay. I'm going to start off right with a question, something a burning question for me, Jaret. So you've been in the class for a while, and you've had a fair number of teammates on the team, which is awesome. You can tell us some great stories, and now you got Jake Lewis back again, and he always tells us about how you guys have a good time on that team. So have you ever considered moving up to a leader bike, SOC 1000, something like that, or do you just really think the sweet spot is super sport for you?
Maybe eventually. I just feel like I still lay so much on the table in super sport. I feel like I have so much to still accomplish in the class before I'm ready to move up.
Right, right. I mean, that's a good way to put it. And I mean, you've had some issues with the fact that, you had a crew chief or a team manager in Eric Gray that unfortunately passed. And I know that was tough for that team. He did meant a lot to you guys, and he was helping you along pretty well. You were really moving up with your lap times and your racecraft and everything. And I know, you guys have kind of overcome that at this point now. Did you feel like not only for the team, but even for you a little bit, it was a little bit of a personal setback with that happening?
Oh yeah, for sure. Eric was not only a friend, but he was a huge part into our racing team. He was a crew chief. He was a mechanic for us. He did everything at the shop on the bikes between weekends. So when he passed away, it was a huge setback for the team. And then last year was just a whole rebuild phase for us until we found Boyd. Um, we struggled a lot, and then at the end of the season, we kind of got our feet back underneath us. And luckily, we have Boyd with us again, and we have Murph with us this year as well to have
Oh,
our
right, you do.
get to have our and that duo helps us out a lot, so we can actually have some data and stuff to because data in super sport is huge. I mean, we're basically all the technology is basically Moto 2 spec stuff. So, I mean, for the state side, we're basically Moto 2 bikes almost with the spec uh, harnesses and stuff we have to run on these Gixxer 750s.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you going from the 600 to the 750, that was good for you, right?
Yeah, I enjoy it a lot. Like handling is pretty still pretty similar with the Gixxer frame and everything, but the torque is that helps a lot. You don't have to you can use the bottom end quite a bit more, which I like a lot.
I always liked riding the GSXR 750. I thought it was like the perfect bike between a 600 and a 1000. And then even with well, a regular guy like me would probably like it even better with it detuned a little bit because it's still got the torque, but not necessarily the speed that scares us. But is that kind of how it is? It looks like it'd be a fun bike to race.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, we still struggle in some aspects, like compared to the Ducati and even the Yamaha. The Yamahas get off the corner really good, and then we get back on them like mid power, but we're only at 80% throttle, so top end we still struggle a little bit. I mean, trap speeds are always there, but I mean, it's back and forth between every bikes, and obviously it depends on rider and everything, but the bikes are all so good nowadays. They're all up there.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jaret. I'm glad you brought that up. Now, I have never heard anybody mention what the percentage is on the throttle for the GSXR 750, but that's an interesting point. And I want to point out to the listeners, many of you, I'm sure, know what Supersport Next Generation is, but right now, I feel like it almost kind of saved that middleweight class. And, the 750 is now eligible. It needed to have an electronic throttle so it could be controlled, as Jaret said, in terms of the balancing. There's a 955. There's a bunch of 955 V2s in there. So there's an MV Agusta now. I mean, there's 800s, there's 955s, there's 750s, there's still the R6, and there's a lot of balancing. So one of the things about that is, you know, you're riding a motorcycle, Jaret, that, I mean, you've probably ridden a full-on GSXR 750 versus this. It's got to be a little frustrating, isn't it, to twist that throttle and you're not getting what you probably thought you would get?
Oh yeah, when the thing's fully uncorked, it's a whole different monster. And honestly, when it's detuned, you can totally tell. So I wish we could ride the full 750. It'd be really nice. But
Yeah,
obviously, they got to keep it equal to their standards, anyways.
that's right. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about I want to talk about the racing, obviously, but doing a little research, I think his job away from the racetrack sounds really interesting, and I have no clue what it is. So, Jared, why don't you tell us a little bit what exactly goes on there? I don't know that crew chief is the same as crew chief at a race. I feel like crew chief's actually in the plane, but I might be wrong.
Yes, I'm actually not a crew chief anymore. A year ago, I hired on with Boeing, and now I'm a field
Oh,
service representative. So I work for Boeing now. But straight out of high school, I got my AMP license, and then I worked out on the flight line. I was a crew chief. So I kind of was the overseer of basically the whole plane for maintenance. We got the planes ready for air crews to fly. Day-to-day maintenance was done kind of underneath my supervision because I worked all the way up to a WG-11, so my name was on the side of the plane and everything.
Wow.
Um, and then yeah, a year ago I switched over to Boeing. We got some of, and then now is a bigger, broader aspect of my job is I still help not maintenance. I'm not so much more hands-on, but I still help keep the planes green as much as possible. I help with um repair aspects and then helping them in any aspect they need of if they can't find parts, helping find parts. If they need like I said, repairs that they don't know how to do, maintenance they don't know how to do, I help with all that kind of stuff.
That's cool.
yeah. And Jaret, so I didn't even know you switched, but are you still in the same place you're at the base, the air base, right? Is that
Yes, sir. I'm
correct?
still in Altus and I still work on the KC-46. I just kind of went to the other side of the fence and instead of being the user, I'm kind of working for the manufacturer now.
Yeah. And it's Altus Air Force Base, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So it's Air Force planes that you were working on. I mean, I know there are Navy planes and there are obviously, I guess, Marine, well, what is it, the A-10 and things like that. But you work on the C bike or C bikes, the C planes. I say C designation are the big cargo, the big transport. They transport what, the tanks and all kinds of stuff. Is that right?
That's the C-17. I work on the KC-46, which is a aerial refueling plane, which is
Oh,
Air
okay.
Force's newest refueler.
Okay. Well, you got to tell us about that.
I know
Okay.
that's crazy.
Those planes that come up there in midair and you throw that boom out or whatever it is. I mean, that's crazy. There's got to be a little bit of fuel that maybe ends up in the atmosphere, isn't it? I mean, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a skilled system, but
He
obviously
wants to
I
stay
don't know
away from
all the
that.
aspects to it.
But that's pretty cool. So they carry a ton of fuel on them beyond the fuel that obviously gets the plane up in the air and gets it to where it needs to be and back, right? I mean, they're
Yes, sir.
providing fuel. Do you have any idea how many planes they can that plane can refuel?
So it's not like a total amount because it
Okay.
just depends on how much fuel each plane needs. But like our plane can hold upwards of like 210,000 pounds, so
Ooh.
it's a lot of fuel.
Yeah. Are those jets or are those prop driven planes? The
They're
CK.
jets.
KC, I mean, I keep saying CK, KC. Um, they are jets. Okay. What is it? Like two jets on either side, like four? Is that kind of what it
Yeah,
is,
they
or is there
have
more?
two Pratt Whitney 4000s on them that produce 62,000 pounds of thrust each.
Wow. And does the nose come up and the tail ramp come down? I mean, can you kind of load from either end on that thing?
No, so our we don't have any ramps. We have a cargo door.
Oh, you do.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And Paul, this is amazing. So he's doing this during his lunch hour, and I thought, oh, he's probably going to be in some break room somewhere. But it turns out he's that close to home that he actually is able to come home for lunch to be with us. So, do you come home pretty much every day, Jaret?
I
From
do.
the
Yeah. That's the aspect I love about my job is Altus is a pretty small town, so I'm able to come home for lunch. And yeah, I only live by the time I get through the gate and everything, it's about 10 minutes from the house.
It's amazing stuff.
Before we started, I was complimenting him on what I believe may be the best mustache in the paddock.
Oh, it's primo. Yeah, absolutely. And it's
I
only been a couple of years, but it really looks good.
Yeah, I've been growing up for a while now.
Yeah. Yeah, you make Roger Hayden's look like a cookie dust on his upper lip or something, you know.
and Michael Gilbert gave it a go for a while.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Some guys can do it and some guys don't. All right, so let's talk about your family a little bit. So you guys are from Oklahoma, based there. You have a dealership, and that's a bit of a surprise for me and something I've actually never asked you in the times I've talked to you. But you know, you guys have a family dealership. Your dad, I assume it's your mom as well, is involved in. But you know, I don't know if your brother works there, if you did work there at one point. But how is it that you actually don't work at that place and you kind of went off on your own and went to Altus Air Force Base to work? How did that end up happening?
Yeah, so I've always been pretty mechanically inclined. So I worked there growing up, turning wrenches, but to make good money as a motorcycle mechanic, it's pretty hard. So then I pursued the aviation route because we had that through our local schools. And my brother does work there. He's the general manager here at the Altus store. And
Are you
my dad's actually kind of the one that kind of persuaded me into going the route of the aviation route because I thought I was going to work at the shop with them, but you know, a lot more hours, a lot more hard work would have to be done to make what I make compared to if I would have to work a lot harder as a motorcycle mechanic to make what I make now, at
yeah,
least.
so that was
I
good
get
dad
that.
advice.
Yeah, good dad advice. But it's funny though, because I don't know for a fact, but it seems like I've talked to some other mechanics in the paddock, and there are some that have some aviation background. I don't know if Murph does or not, but seems like he's worked on all kinds of things. So it's possible. But have you found that there's some people that have, well, what was it? Hunter Dunham's dad I don't think he's a pilot. He worked mechanically for one of the companies, I think. Didn't he? Plane companies?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I've seen or I've met quite a few people in the pack that have aviation backgrounds. I know there's one guy that was turning wrenches that worked for Boeing. Also, he was a C-17 FSR, I believe, uh, somewhere on the East Coast. So, it's kind of weird how worlds collide in that aspect. But they always say the world's a lot smaller than you think it is.
Right, right, exactly. When as you sit at home or when you're at home, even at night, I mean, do you hear the planes going overhead?
All day. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so. You got to be in the flight path,
Yeah.
and those are big planes. They probably make a little bit of noise, don't they?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we can hear them all the way up to our flight line closes around, or the airstrip closes around like 2 a.m.
Oh,
is when
jeez.
tower closes. So yeah, they're up all night.
Wow.
Wow. Have you ever flown out of that Air Force Base on any of those planes to go somewhere or come into there from anything?
So we don't have any commercial uh
I mean you as an
stuff,
employee
but
or
when I
yeah,
worked
yeah.
civil service, yeah, I went TDY with airplanes all the time.
Okay. So you did get up in the air. I mean, you weren't just on the ground crew or whatever all the time. You actually did go up there and see what was going on. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So if,
Wow.
airplane goes off station to like Luke Air Force Base, Travis Air Force Base, they send crew with it, maintenance crew.
Mhm. Oh, they do. So that when
Yeah.
they land, if there's something, you don't have to deal with the crew on the ground up there then. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. There's so much to it. And I mean, obviously you've got so much defense government or whatever it is clearance. You must have to have badges or all kinds of things. Do they do a fingerprint thing? Do they do a face recognition? What do they do when you go in and out of that place?
Yeah, it's called you have a bunch of cards and stuff that have chips on them, cat card and badges and stuff like that you have to deal with. Yeah, well, I have a security clearance, all kinds of stuff you have to keep up with.
So you can't
Yeah.
sneak in there, Sean.
Not even if I grow a righteous mustache, and I'd have to also shade it a little bit, I think too.
Yeah, you'd
So
need some ink on it.
yeah. Um hey, one of the other things I want to ask you about, I did a story about this several years ago. I want to bring it up again. Actually, there's a couple of things I've written about you, and I want to ask you about a couple of those two things. One of them is the fact that you are a member of the Choctaw Nation, right? So
Yes, sir.
you're a Native American, proud Native American of that Choctaw tribe, which, well, tribe, I don't know if you call it tribe, nation, whatever, but at one time, of course, they were in Florida. So the reason you guys are in Oklahoma is the Trail of Tears that the government or whatever decided to put you guys all out in Oklahoma. And so that's kind of why you're there. Do you have relatives in Florida at all?
Not to my knowledge, but I mean, I love Florida, so if I could ever go back, I'd be down for that. I love the beach, the
Yeah.
warm weather, not having to deal with the winter.
Okay, I have not seen this movie, but you know what I'm going to ask you. Have you seen what is it? Killers of the Flower Moon? Have you seen it?
Oh, I have, yeah, we watched it. It's way too long.
Is it
It's like
is
over
it
three
a
hours, and they drug it out way too long. Yeah,
but it's based is it based it's in Oklahoma, right?
yeah.
Is it near is it you guys?
Uh, I'm not sure where it's actually located, but like for instance, like my tribe is actually more like southeastern Oklahoma. So
Okay.
we're out of the tribal zone actually in the western portion.
Okay. And I think maybe is it the Osage Indians that are also in Oklahoma as well?
Yeah,
Or
there's a bunch of tribes in
right.
Oklahoma. Yeah, if you
Right.
pull up a map, there's
Sean's
like
been doing his homework.
Well, you
there's
know, it's funny. My dad was a big fan. He just used to get all upset about this very subject, Jaret, that you guys were moved, your ancestors were moved, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, and the fact that it's interesting that Oklahoma became known as an oil-rich country. So some of the tribes people had oil on their property, and I mean that's the subject of that movie and everything. Did you like the movie? Did it touch you in a certain way as being a Native American or anything like that?
um not I guess not so much as you would I guess think because I mean I'm quite always down the bloodline of being
Yeah,
Indian. So like, and we don't not being so close to the tribe, like we don't deal with them as much, I guess you could say.
yeah,
So I mean, it was an interesting aspect of learning the history of it all or that portion, but I mean that was about it.
yeah. And then of course your dad is a little bit closer to that as well. It's amazing how much, yeah, as much as you look like your dad, you actually sound more like your dad than I've really ever thought to listen to you talk that much. So that's cool though. To be on a team with your family, and it's a team that's been in the paddock for a long time, and the footprint that you guys have. I mean, the color scheme you have. You've had a couple of Stock 1000 champions on that team. You've worked with a lot of different riders. Who is well? I'm not going to ask you who your favorite one was, but I'm going to ask you about the current one. Can you tell us something weird about Jake Lewis? Weird, funny, whatever, anything like that.
I don't really have anything weird or funny about Jake. I mean, Jake's a character for sure, and I mean, it's always a good time with Jake. He has a good sense of humor. He always brings everyone up, even when we're having hard times and during the race weekends. He's always a good person to be around. And even when he's having a hard weekend, he's been in the sports for so long. He knows how both sides of events go.
Well, speaking of that, I'm looking at the point standings. Is that a typo or do you have 0 points?
0 points. Yeah, Atlanta was a rough one.
Tell us how we got to 0 points after two races in Atlanta.
Yeah, race one. I hit a false neutral on the first lap and it put me on the ground. So by the time I got the bike back up, I was so far behind, I couldn't do nothing. And I had to pull in the pit because the bar was bent down. So then I was a lap behind and all that. So I got no points for race one. And then race two, more in warm up, I had a little tip over and I guess a crack in like a TPS sensor or something put me out for the race.
Mm.
So
Mm. That's got to be tough. What is it like? I mean, Jake's obviously a tall drink of water, and I mean, to be honest, on a super sport bike, he admits it too. It's somehow he's able to fold himself in. He's had good results. I mean, he got that podium at Road Atlanta. I know you guys work together on stuff and talk about things. Is there anything you can take from what he's doing? I don't know if it data or anything else. Are there insights that he can provide? And you've been on that team a long time, so I'm sure you provide insights back to him as well and help him along the way. How does that dynamic between the two of you guys work?
yeah, for sure. Like even working with Murph and just going over data and just seeing everything that he does on the bike compared to what I do on the bike and overlaying everything. I mean, that's just huge because obviously Jake's super fast and he's been a factory superbike rider before. So he obviously knows how to ride a motorcycle. So me learning from him is a huge aspect of having him on the team and everything. So it's a huge part of uh, my program that I really enjoy having him there for.
So do they call you over and say, "Hey, look, he's getting on the gas earlier than you," and "Hey, look, he's getting on the brakes later than you"? Is that kind of a thing?
Yep.
How that goes? And then you're just
Yep.
like, "Oh, I don't want to
Unfortunately,
hear
data
this."
doesn't lie.
Right. Before you could say, "I'm doing everything he's doing," and they're like, "No, that's not the case."
Yeah, but you feel like you can feel like you're all over him, but then you go look at data and you can tell instantly, like exactly he opened the gas earlier here, or he went to the brakes deeper here, everything.
Yeah.
Well, just know he could never work on those planes.
Yeah.
No, he
So you
couldn't. No,
got
he
that going
couldn't.
for you.
Yeah, I give him crap for that all the time. That he'll even admit that he's not very mechanically inclined because
Oh,
even
Oh,
apparently he's
his dirt bikes are
horrible.
pretty roached.
Yeah, like Roger and those guys always have to like do the
yeah.
mechanic work. Or JD to the
JD.
rescue. Yeah,
JD
he
does
he
it.
saves
Yeah.
his ass on those mechanical problems with the dirt bike.
Has Jake gotten you to? I see what last weekend or whatever he did some woods riding. Has he tried to talk you into doing any of that?
Yeah, so uh he's good buddies with Kyle Martin. So he comes down to Texas every once in a while and we'll go ride trails when he comes down here.
Oh, that's good. And
Yeah.
you guys go to Eagles Canyon a fair amount or have gone there, right? I mean, you like that
Yeah.
track. Could we ever have a Moto America around there, or they don't have an infrastructure? I know they got garages, right?
Yeah, the paddock probably wouldn't support that. And then on the front straight, there's a wall. It's too close coming on the last turn, so probably not.
Okay. Yeah, we don't want that then. How do you feel about Barber? I'm sure you really like that track. I mean, it's a little closer to home for you. Not real close, but a little closer. And it's a good track for a middleweight bike. Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, I love Barber. I have a lot of good memories there, so I'm really looking forward to it. It's one of my favorite tracks in the circuits. We're
Yeah.
super excited. Hopefully, get some redemption from round one. Put our name back up there.
When you go into these things, like, I mean, you look at the names now in Supersport and it's pretty stacked. Like, is a good day for you? Do you feel like do you have a goal of like top 10, top five? I mean, is that generally where you're looking at?
Yeah, for sure. Because obviously, you saw podium guys are ex superbike riders, so.
Right.
you know, being in the top five or top 10 even now is a huge feat to even do. So, yeah, being in the top 10 is just the goal for the year. Being consistent, being right there with them every weekend. Because I know I rode with Jake at ECR over the winter and I was just as fast as him there. So I know I can ride with him. I know I can go just as quick as him. I just got to be comfortable on the bike. We got to get it as I need it. So I can be right there with them. So I can be in the fight. So when the time is right, I can get on the podium as well.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and I mean Jake's told us that. I mean, he told us about Eagles Canyon and how you're fast, and that's it. I mean, exactly. And I mean, he's rooting for you as much as all of us are, or anybody on your team or whatever. I want to mention you talked about Murph, and it's a funny story because a couple of years ago he was at Laguna and he wasn't working in the paddock with us, but he wanted to get into the paddock, and so I got a pass for him. The entire time I've known this guy, which has been, I don't know, 15, 20 years, I've never knew his first name. I was like, is your name Rob Murphy? I mean, I don't, it's always been Murph. And so it's one of these guys, but he's been around for a long time. He worked with Anthony West forever. He did a ton of stuff with Jeremy McWilliams. So you've got a
So what
very,
is his name? Because I don't know. I only know Marv.
you know, I don't remember what he told me. Do you know what it is, Jaret?
You're gonna put me on the spot now. I'm
No,
not.
no, none
He
of us
doesn't know
know.
Yeah, we
either.
all just call
No.
him Merv.
Yeah, that's it.
Maybe Murph doesn't know.
It might be Mike. It actually might be Michael, possibly. I don't know. He told me, and I have it in a thing somewhere.
We'll
But
ask him at Barber.
yeah, and I can't keep it straight in my head. All I know is that when he puts one hand up, there's one finger shorter than the other. So, which I guess he had that happen in some mishap working on a motorcycle. So, and I think it might have been when he was around Jeremy McWilliams. I'm not sure, but he's got a company of his own called Missing Digit Motors, which makes sense that that's why it's called that. But I mean, the guy's good from a mechanical point of view, but he's also good electronics and everything, isn't he, Jaret?
Yeah, he's really good at what he does with the electronics. So that was a huge part of getting him on the team because what he can do with the computer and everything with the bikes is huge.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been struggling with the most is getting the bikes set up even on the electronical side of the house.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. And that's the thing. I mean, he worked for Speed Cell for a while. He's worked for a bunch of different places, but the thing that cracks me up, and I know you know this, Jared, and probably Paul does too. He's crazy about snowmobiles. In the winter, he's like always riding a snowmobile and getting it stuck in this gigantic snow piles and stuff. He rides the old two strokes that, you know, the Polarises and things like that. Has he ever invited you to go snowmobiling with him or anything?
Not yet, but he works for Polaris. Like
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that. Okay.
yeah, he does. So the Polaris racing team, like factory racing team, basically, he does like their data system for snowmobile racing.
Wow.
So
Okay.
he's got a year-round gig because
Yeah,
winter, summer, obviously.
yeah. So he flies back and forth all the time.
Wow, that I didn't know. I mean, the guy's done a ton of stuff. So, and Boyd Bruner's been around for a little bit too. He's worked with a lot of successful racers. So you have a real good infrastructure there for sure. It's a little different for you guys this year in that, and your dad kind of pointed it out in the beginning of the year, is that you don't have any leader bike riders at all on the team, and you usually have at least one, but not the case this year. I mean, it's maybe next year, but just it kind of worked out this way for you guys as far as sponsors, I think went, didn't it?
Yeah, it's just Supersport this year, and we don't even have the small bikes this year either.
Oh, that's right.
Um, so it's just Supersport. So just focus in on that.
Yeah. Hey, Jaret, look over your shoulder and ask that person to come over and get in the camera for a minute. Ask her to do it just for me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot of
Let's get your
pressure.
head in the shot, so now they want to see you.
Say,
Hey, y'all.
I want to see her every chance I get because I like her. Did you ever tell her, Jaret, how much I was like, man, Jaret, nicely done. You're the man. So it's been what, a couple years now, right? For you guys?
Yeah, we've been dating, or we've been together for like 10 years, and we've been married for almost 5 now.
That's
Wow.
great. I
Must be the
love it.
mustache.
Actually, you're okay about it. You didn't marry. He didn't have the mustache when you got married. So,
He didn't. It was my idea, I think.
oh, okay. Good job. All right. I'm glad you were a guest on our podcast today.
Sorry for interrupting y'all. Thank
No, it's
you.
fine.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Jared, I got one more thing I want to ask you. You may know. Do you know what I'm going to ask you about?
No.
Okay,
How would he?
could be anything, right? So, well, I mentioned the fact that I knew about your what you did on the Air Force Base, but years ago, it's been a while now. I had talked to your mom, and I wrote that story about, and I apologize, I don't remember the condition that you have, but you had a medical condition, and do you still deal with it? And can you explain it to us a little bit? Because it's been a few years since I wrote that story. So
Yeah,
tell
when I
us about
was
it.
14 years old, I was diagnosed with it was called ADEM, ADEM. It's a acute demyelinization of your like nervous system. It affects your brain and your spinal cord. So I had like lesions on my brain, and my spinal cord swelled. And then like yeah, like I said, it like stripped like the waxy coating off your off your nerves. So I had some I s- don't really struggle with it anymore. I still have kind of like some tremor issues from the brain lesions. They said I've gotten CT scans. They say it's basically all gone now, though. So
Wow.
Wow, that's good.
And what causes it? Do they know?
the yeah, I mean it's one of those weird things that you don't really have a lot of information on. It was just your autoimmune system overreacts, and I mean that was unfortunately one of the outcomes of it.
Okay. Yeah, I remember when it happened, and I couldn't remember if it was something that you had to learn to live with your entire life, or if you were able to recover from it. And we haven't talked about it in a while, and we never see any issues with you. It seems like your job situation is all good. There's no problems there. So your speech is clear and everything. So it's good to know that you're okay with all that stuff. And have a mustache.
Yeah. I
So
mean, some people that get diagnosed with it relapse, but I was lucky enough that it never came back. So
That's good news.
yeah, that is. So let's project forward a little bit. Let's go down the road a little bit, if many years in advance, past if you ever do race a leader bike or a super bike or whatever. You're going to be in the paddock, I think. I think you're going to be running your team or a team, or you're going to have something involved in it because of your mechanical aptitude, the fact that you're a rider, and a lot of riders make the best crew chiefs or whatever anyway. So do you see that in your future? Are you going to still continue to be in the paddock long after this? I'm projecting forward. Now, I'm not talking in the next couple of years, but have you thought about that?
I mean, that'd be awesome. I mean, we love being in the paddock, but obviously nothing can happen without money. And
Yeah.
with the way the sport is now, unless the sponsors start rolling in like they used to be, it'd be a hard feat to have. But I mean, I would love to be in the paddock for as long as possible for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't see any end. I mean, I know financing and sponsorship is always tough, especially for a team like you guys, because you have a big team and you want to put the best foot forward that you can. And, it's a big testament to you. And of course, your dad and mom for being able to do that. You always have a list of good sponsors along the way, which is terrific. You also have some involvement in off-road racing, right? Supercross and all that. Tell us about that side of Altus Motorsports, if you would.
Yeah, so my brother runs that side of the house, and their or kind of like factory Yamaha trackside support for amateur racing.
Hmm.
We're the biggest YZ dealership basically in the nation. I know in the Midwest we are. So yeah, they go to all the amateur nationals, and then they go to Loretta's as well.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember when Justin Cooper was really young. I mean, I don't remember if he worked with you guys, but I remember those support teams he would go to, like you say, Loretta Lynn's or Mini-O's or that kind of stuff. And you guys were always part of that group. And that's the first time I ever knew about Altus, even before, MotoAmerica. So it was prior to 2015. You guys have been doing that for a while. And that's hard to kind of, for a company and an organization to have such involvement in the road racing and on the off-road side as well for a dealership. And I assume the dealership is doing well. It sounds like it. I'm always seeing people buying bikes from there on Facebook. So is it doing well?
Yeah, I mean, they're keeping it afloat, and my brother is a big aspect of that, and he's the GM there. And uh, yeah, the Yamaha or the dirt bike side is huge, and off-road side, they do a lot of side by sides and stuff like that in this area, which that's their bread and butter. So like even like sport bikes, this area they don't sell many sport bikes.
Yeah, I mean, is there a track? What's the nearest track? Is it ECR?
Yeah, ECR would be our closest track, which
And
is
how?
2.5 hours away.
Yeah, it's a ways away. I can remember talking to Trig Westby about Barber, thinking it wasn't that far, but Barber's actually quite a ways from Oklahoma, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's 12 or 14 hours.
It's a haul.
This country is so big, I can't even get over it. It's amazing. Um, I think I'm in good shape. You got Paul.
Yeah. No, I'm
Okay.
I'm glad to get to know you a little better, and it was nice of you to join the show.
Yeah,
And
Jared, is there
Oh,
anything you want to rap about or tell us, sponsor wise or team wise or and you still don't want to tell us anything secret about Jake Lewis, I guess, huh?
I don't really
Okay.
got any secrets about Jake. He puts it all out in the open.
right,
So
there's no secrets.
yeah,
Um,
no, I don't really have anything. Just thank y'all for having me on. I mean, I'm super excited for Barber, and we'll see y'all there. Hopefully, it'll stay dry this weekend.
Yeah,
yeah,
let's hope for that.
yeah, we've been hearing the same thing, but listen, Jared, I got to ask you this. You can vouch for this. These West Coast guys, okay, and I'm from Ohio. So when we see 20-30% rain, that's a good day. I mean, that's not so bad. These guys see it and think it's going to be raining the entire day, but it really isn't like that, is it?
I start to cry when I see those
Yeah,
kind of
yeah. I mean,
like
if it's anything below 50 isn't bad, right, Jared?
Yeah, you know how the weather people are, though. They don't even know. So, yeah, 20% could mean it's going to rain all day.
Right. And we don't know what's going to happen at Barber. We always have interesting things, but you were in that crazy weather a couple of years ago, right? The one that Gabriel De Silva ended up winning the Supersport race.
oh, that was horrible.
That was treacherous, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've been in a couple of crazy rain races at Barber.
Yeah. That's the one thing about that place. I mean, do you like the repaved surface better than the old track?
Oh yeah, the grip's so good up there, and even in the wet, it's really good.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Well, it won't be long. We'll be seeing you. I'll swing around and talk to you again. Let's see. You got a little bit of time. You got to get some lunch in you, and then show those cards and get back in that base. So,
Yes, sir.
all
All right,
right.
guys. Thank you. See you next
Thanks,
week.
Jared.
Sounds good. Thank y'all.